Well, with the martial arts tournament back again, this means that a lot of players out there can finally get the remaining divine cubes to go and take a piece of gear to SS. And I figure what a better opportunity to kind of go over my experience with these things. I've played all 5, tested them all out, and I figure I'd just kind of share of what I think most people should be going for. Now, I do want to say I'm not trying to tick anybody off. This is just my experience. I could be wrong on all this, but based by my build on it and where I'm at in the game, this seems to be my opinion for what I'm suggesting. So let's start it off here then, and we'll start off with the Celis suffering. This is one that I'd probably say I wouldn't recommend at all. I mean, honestly, for me, it just seemed like it was great at going and playing defense and building up that HP, but I was having a really hard time hitting the numbers and doing the damage with this. And let me just say, if you are a Durian user, maybe this is something you want to go for. The fact that you've probably been building around this, probably putting stars into Wukong, and this might actually benefit you a little well. But for me, I wasn't doing those things. My Wukong was low, and even going and getting a bunch of spears out there, it just seemed like I just wasn't hitting hard enough compared to the other ones. The next one is going to be the Elris Whisperer, and as you know, I've been a huge fan of the Whisperer in the past. I love the whole dagger things, but this really seemed to be one of those things where the only way I could do incredibly great with this was getting that perfect build. Given that this was one of the weapons that I would always go and rely on the rage, get the procs on the actual weapon skill of it, and just get these things back to back, it was a continuous flow and it was really just pumping into the enemy. And like I said, with a perfect RNG, this can work well, but when you go and run into a board that only has 10 days on it versus a full 30 or even a 60, it just kind of leaves you feeling like, did this thing even get buffed when it really feels like it got nerfed with the whole rages? Now, the next one might turn some heads here, and I'm sure I'm going to cause an uproar on this, but I'm going to say the next one is going to be the Hilo's warblade. And I do want to say that this is, at the end game, probably the strongest weapon out there. But going and just switching right now, if you're not one of the people spending tens of thousands of dollars to get there, this could be a very difficult switch for you to get to there, and it's just one of those things of even me going and get it and spending the 10 grand that I have or so, it just feels like I'm still struggling. There's a lot that needs to get changed on this in order to make this thing perfect, not to mention needing those stars on Raphael. I would still say to have this as a goal for your end game if the meta doesn't change on this, that yes, this will be strong, just slowly work your way to building it, but by the time you get to that point, you'll probably have every single one of these SS pieces of gear anyways, and you could just easily switch between them. And clearly, if you've been using the Blade of Justice already, then yeah, this is probably a good switch for you to go to, but anybody using one of the other weapons, it's going to be a little bit difficult to get you there. Now, the next is the Nashir scepter, and as you know, I was using the Reaper staff before, so I may be a little biased on this of going and switching into this. It was incredibly easy just to go and slap the SS on and start pumping out that damage. I do believe that this weapon is actually an upgrade from the Reaper staff, and the fact that I was still doing perfectly fine in PvP, and I was actually able to make some progress in chapters themselves too. So for me, this was kind of a nice one overall to have. I really can't complain too much about it, especially since they added it as a rage skill. They really need to fix the rage inside the game, but this seems like still a solid choice in my opinion. But the one I'd probably recommend that everybody should go for, if you're not one of those unique ones like the Durian and the Blade of Justice, is going to be the Elorian Sword, the Sky Splitter upgrade. This thing felt incredibly easy just to pop on, do the damage, hitting multiple enemies at once. It really is like a perfect weapon to have inside the game. Given that everybody was pushing on that Ghost Legacy for so long, this still works great with this, and then just slapping a Diego on and a Wild Vulture, not to mention the Heaven's Mark, it just feels like this is an easy way to do some damage and progress in the game. PvP, I was struggling a little bit more than I was with the Nashir, but it still kind of held up on its own. So like I said, that's what I would go for. That's just my own personal opinion. And I guess if you want to, post down the comments what you would go for if you've tested more than one of these weapons. I personally am still going to try to work on this Blade of Justice, the fact that Raphael is right around the corner, but I'm going to take the other piece of gear and switch it over to Lorian and see how far I can push with that. But speaking of progressing, there were some changes done in Grand Harvest. If you want to know all about it, take a look at this video right here. Thanks for watching, and remember, I pick my butt.